We all think of a wheelchair as this incredible tool for mobility, for independence, but what if the very thing that gives people freedom is also causing them chronic pain? Well, a major scientific review has uncovered a really serious and, frankly, surprisingly common side effect of using a wheelchair.
So let's just get right to the number that absolutely stopped researchers in their tracks: 50%.
That is 1 out of every 2 people who use a wheelchair. And I want to be crystal clear here. This isn't pain from an old injury or an underlying condition. No, this is pain that is a direct result of using the wheelchair, of the simple, everyday act of propelling yourself through the world.
So how in the world did researchers arrive at such a huge number? Let's dive in and really unpack the science behind this finding.
First off, this number doesn't just come from one single study. It's from something called a meta-analysis. Basically, researchers gathered up the results from 40, that's 40, different papers on the topic and combined all that data. It's a really powerful way to see the big picture.
Okay, so if we know that half of all wheelchair users are experiencing this pain, the next logical question is where? Where exactly is the body taking the biggest hit? Where does it hurt the most? And what's so interesting is how clearly this chart maps out the problem for us. You can see pain all across the upper body, the neck, the back, the wrists, the elbow. But just look at that big number there. At 44%, one area stands head and shoulders, quite literally, above the rest.
And if you really want to understand the scale of that shoulder problem, this number puts it all into perspective: 5.8 times.
So why such a massive increase? Well, it all comes down to the constant, repetitive strain of propelling the chair. It just puts this immense and frankly unnatural load on the shoulder joint day after day. And the research points to one main cause.
This quote from the study just explains it perfectly. Every single push of the wheels, every transfer you make out of the chair, every time you reach for something, those are the propulsion forces and weight-bearing tasks that, over time, lead to serious rotator cuff problems and chronic pain.
Of course, it's not just the shoulders taking a beating. The analysis also found that pain in the neck and back is often a result of just plain poor posture while sitting. Meanwhile, the rest of the arm, the elbow, the wrist, the hand suffers from that exact same kind of repetitive overuse. You know, this all leads to another critical question. Is everyone equally at risk for developing this kind of pain? Or are certain people more likely to suffer than others? Well, the evidence points to a few pretty clear factors. Now, this is where the science gets a little nuanced. On one side, the evidence is rock solid for 2 things: your age and the number of years you've been using a wheelchair. It's pretty straightforward. The older you are and the longer you've used a chair, the higher the risk. But for other things like sex, BMI, or even how active you are, the studies are kinda all over the place. The evidence just doesn't agree. So, understanding the problem is step 1. But the most important part of this whole thing is figuring out what we can actually do about it. How can we relieve this pain? And even more importantly, how can we prevent it? For anyone who's already in pain, the good news is the research shows there are options that can help. Things like targeted stretching and strengthening exercises, some medications like pain patches, and even something called functional electrical stimulation have all been shown to give people some relief. But, managing pain is reactive. It's what you do after the problem has already started. The real goal, the most powerful thing we can do, is to stop that pain from ever showing up at all. So, how do we do that? This here is the key summary, straight from the researchers themselves. They lay out the huge scale of the problem, but it's that very last sentence that contains the most powerful idea, the best path forward.
Let's just read that one more time. Optimal adjustment of seating position may prevent pain. Think about that for a second. It's not about a new drug or some complicated workout routine. The single most important tool for prevention, according to this massive review, is something as simple as proper posture and a correctly fitted wheelchair.
And that really leaves us with one final big idea to think about. We tend to focus on the wheels, the frame, the parts that make it go. But what if all this research is telling us we've been looking in the completely wrong place? What if the key to a painless life in a wheelchair isn't about how it moves, but about how it holds you?